Hey everybody, it's Haley. Welcome back to my channel. It's been like an actual year since I put a video on here, but I was really inspired to get back into creating, and I've really been enjoying the This I Know kit from BTW4G and a Spark group, which is what we call our small groups at the church that I'm part of, is going through the truth-filled study. And I was really inspired. We're in Colossians. With this portion, we're in Colossians 1:15 through chapter 2 verse 3, and we're talking about the supremacy or the preeminence of Christ. And so we filled in what it says in Colossians, but then on the back there's different scripture references that share where it talks about that portion of Christ's identity elsewhere in the Bible. And I really wanted to document it. That's my son, he says hi. And then I remembered all these doors from the This I Know. And I was working through it this morning. I was like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with these. So I'm gonna journal on the back about each one of these and then put them in my Bible. So thanks for hanging out with me. I'm gonna put you guys on fast forward and we'll get started. So as you can see, there's a significant amount of ghosting on the back of this paper from my Ohana entry. I love to do Disney and Pixar entries, so I'm also trying to use up a lot of my patterned paper because I have a lot and I don't use it. So I thought I'd grab a purple piece to try and kind of correspond with the purples in the floral pieces on the door die cuts that I'll be adding. So that's why I chose this one. And I had a lot to contend with between the shadowing and the Colossians banner down the side, so that was the best bet. I also have a really hard time remembering what has been like gessoed and what hasn't, so I didn't want to put a wet medium on the back of that and accidentally ruin elements of that page. So here I'm just laying my doors out. And then I'm gonna grab my to-do list and create like a little map so I know which one goes where. Excuse me. I'm gonna grab my study notes here and just start journaling the different attributes of the preeminence or supremacy of Christ on the back of these doors. I count them to make sure they're evenly distributed on the back of the doors. And it took me quite a while. It was a really fun process though, but I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me write all that stuff out. So once I have these written out, I am going to start kind of messing around with the patterned paper. It's pretty and I love it, but I don't know, it just didn't feel really cohesive. It didn't feel like it really tied in with the doors, even though the purples are there. I think because I still have the white and black of the text on the left. So I grabbed my Distress mica sprays and I ended up choosing tarnished brass. I got my swatch book out to kind of see which one matched this little scrap of patterned paper, which I don't end up using, but I do use the mica spray. So this was a fun portion of the creative process for me. I love using stencils, and I love the ones that BTW4G creates. I'm just going to washi tape this craft mat down. I put the tape on my arm so it's not as likely to tear my page when I remove it. Like I was saying, I love the BTW4G stencils. I love the stone arch, but I haven't found a way to use it that I have loved. And so I was like, hey, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna spray this mica spray all over the paper and then use the stencil to pick up and leave a negative space impression. Except as you're probably realizing, it's a liquid. That's definitely not gonna work. So here's me trying, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, what a mess. Thank you, science. But I just smudged it around, and I actually really like how soft and pretty it was. I think in hindsight that's probably better than having the larger areas really concentrated with the mica spray. So now I've just removed the nozzle and I'm splattering mica spray over it to create like another level of visual texture. And with By the Well for God, their die cut pieces have a pretty substantial white border, which I actually really like. I'm just using a heat tool here to speed up the drying process. And I like that because it gives me the opportunity. I can either fussy cut around them or I can leave them as is. I'd rather them be too big than too small. But it was a very stark contrast to the purple paper, but I also didn't want to cut them off and lose kind of the contrast from the paper to the door. So I took some Brilliance Moonlight White ink and smashed it out on my craft mat and then added water and splattered it. Oh yes, the deco foil. Let me save you some time. My deco foil pen that I had dried out, but I really wanted to add something metallic to bring in the mica spray. That was the whole point. I was going to use the deco foil, so I added the mica spray. Well, I didn't know the pen had run out, so then I had to call an audible. And I was like, hey, you know what? I could add leaves from the Glory stamp set from By the Well for God. I'll just use my Versamark clear sticky ink that I use when I'm embossing. Well, that did not work, and I'm not sure if it just needed more time or what, but anyway. So here I am just using an adhesive tape roller to add adhesive to the doors so that I could add deco foil. On 3 of the doors, I just do 3 quick little swipes of the adhesive, and then on the 3 in the middle, there's pieces on the door that are hardware, and so I concentrated that little bit of adhesive on the hardware and then use my palette knife to kind of push it into the appropriate place. So it looks like the doorknob or the mailbox or the knocker piece are what is the shiny metal. So that was pretty fun. I thought that was kind of cool to do. I really enjoy how it turned out. It's subtle, but like that deco foil is so shiny that it's still pretty like visually punchy. That one at the top with my light above it looks like a party up there. It's very bright. Kudos to Julie Castle from Jules Jewels, who taught me this trick about edging die cut pieces. The white on the ephemera was a little too much for me as far as the concentration of the color. So I'm just taking Distress Oxide and pumice stone and a makeup brush that I got from the Dollar Tree to edge those pieces, and I'm just cleaning it off on a baby wipe. Off camera, and I'm using the wipe to clean off the deco foil that got covered in ink. So now comes the fun part where I'm trying to adhere these down. Off camera, I keep this little 4x6 photo container. I put my scraps of clear sticker paper in there to use as like clear washi. Here is something that I've learned. I generally tear paper when I'm pulling washi tape off of it, but I have found that if I fold it back on itself completely so that like that's a crisscross washi, so if the 2 crisscross sides are like running along each other, it's much less likely for me to tear it. So I like when elements run off the page. So here, yeah, I know. You see it, I didn't. We'll get there. I'll show you how I fix it. I like having elements run off the page because it feels less crowded. And another thing I learned from my favorite YouTuber, Jillian at Hello Jilski. So I'm just making a clear sticker paper hinge here, and excuse me. And then I'm going to tuck that around. Because it's clear, it won't really interfere with the entry on the other side. And then here's where I realized that I just cut off like 25% of my journaling. So that was a little like, oh no, but I'll show you guys how I fix it in a minute. And now I do tape on the inside and the outside. They don't always lay flat, but I like that extra anchor to the page. So I didn't make you watch all that. I went ahead and cut it out. I got them all glued down or taped down, and here is how I'm going to fix that. I just take my stamp binder and my iPad to level the surface, and I trace around that with a piece of scrap copy paper, and I just cut it out, journal on it, and then glue it on there. So one thing that I'm really liking about this study is it talks about the gospel so much. And we have women in our Spark group at this point that I don't think would identify themselves as saved Christians. And so any chance I have to share, that God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believe in him wouldn't perish but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world to himself through himself. Like, I'm gonna teach that, right? And so that was the first thing we did. I was like, gospel's kind of one of these church words, and here's what it means. And so it's just really meaningful to me to be able to share that with them so much. Here I just took 2 clear acrylic blocks. I have one on the bottom and one on the top to hold that glued piece together. And now I'm using StazOn jet black ink for my date stamp at the bottom of the page. And then later I try to add a He Is in the Brilliance Moonlight White ink up in that top left-hand corner of the purple. And it doesn't work, so I just use some Tim Holtz alpha tile things. But I want to share with you a quick story about one of the gals in my Bible study. So starting like 10 years ago, my mom is in Toastmasters, and she wanted to help pioneer this Toastmasters in a women's prison. And, I would pray for those ladies when mom would go to prison toast. And one of them is actually in my small group right now. And so I've been praying for this person for like a decade and didn't know it. Didn't know they would be part of my life. Didn't know they'd be part of my Bible study. And it's just amazing how Jesus really is supreme. He reconciles all things to himself. He's the firstborn over all creation. And he's definitely supreme over this relationship I have. So if you guys would pray for her and I, that would be great. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys really soon.